gentlemen, and scholars. Welcome back to the Keiser Plus AI podcast. I am your host, Robert Keiser, Vice Chancellor of the Graduate School. We have the distinguished pleasure of welcoming a new guest, Mr. Gustavo Moncada. This gentleman is an incredible scholar when it comes to artificial intelligence and data science and computer science, but he is also a practitioner who's using AI in his everyday work. So to begin, welcome, Gustavo. Welcome to the podcast, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Dr. Keiser, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here and to share a little bit of my perspective and experience with AI. For starters, my name is Gustavo. I am a software engineer, and I've been a software engineer for a few years now. I've had the pleasure to work with Amazon Web Services, Amazon Robotics, Expedia Group, and now Caesars Entertainment. I also have a master's degree in computer science from USC, and I'm currently pursuing a graduate degree in artificial intelligence from the University of Pennsylvania. And I guess for starters, I will tell you how I became interested in AI. So I've always been interested in math, and when these LLMs and Chat and Claude, when these tools started to come out, I realized how powerful LLMs were, and I did a little bit of digging and figured out that they're all powered with math behind them. This might be a little too specific, but if you ever took a trig class and you learned about triangles and cosines and angles and cosines and sines, what's interesting is that these LLMs, one of the first approaches was to actually grab two words, represent those words as vectors. Vectors is just simply numbers that represent words that have dimensions. For instance, a word could be represented by the numbers of syllables, whether it's how many synonyms it has, how many antonyms, how long it is, whether it's a verb, a noun. So there's multiple dimensions to what a word represents, how a word can be represented. And you can actually take those dimensions, turn them into a list of numbers which represent those dimensions, and use trig to plug in, grab two words, grab their vectors, and find the angle between them finding the cosine of the angle, and that will tell you how close in similarity two words are. Sorry, that was maybe a little too specific, but I was really astonished about how math can power this models. And then during my professional experience, I've been involved in building large production systems, thinking about reliability, security, scale, and also figuring out how to prevent failure and also how to handle failure, how to manage when things go wrong. Now, the caveat is that now with AI, this adds another layer to that, because in machine learning, we're not always explicitly programming the rules of every behavior. We're training systems from data, and some of those behaviors emerge from what it's learned. So these models are not going to be deterministic. Sometimes they may do something, sometimes they may do another thing, because there's probability behind it. So that naturally leads to the question of if nobody is programming a particular decision, but the system makes a decision that causes harm, who is responsible? And that's, for me, that's where engineering starts intersecting with, in this case, AI starts intersecting with ethics and the law.
And I absolutely want to ask you about that. And I really appreciate you getting into your background, your expertise. I will say your propensity to love math makes one of us. That's you. And I give you all the credit in the world. I unfortunately never even took trigonometry. So I got my doctorate degree, and somehow I was able to get by that. But what I would say is I love hearing your passion for that. And we're very lucky to have you on the podcast, because I actually completely think you undersold yourself. Not only did you work at all these small companies like Amazon and Caesars Entertainment, but you specialize in robotics and web services. And then academically, you're going to all these terrible institutions, and obviously this is a joke. Everything you've done is pretty incredible, super impressive. But you went to the University of Southern California, you're a Trojan, and then also now you're going to UPenn and getting your Master's of Science and Engineering in AI from University of Pennsylvania. obviously an Ivy League. So when we say that you are an expert, not only academically, but as a practitioner, you are, and there's so few of you because AI is a new area of study, at least academically. But obviously on the practitioner side, people have been using for 10, 15, even 20 years in some cases. But academically, you marrying both is amazing. And I love hearing your story. So you started talking about the intersection of law and AI use and humanoid use. And I would love to talk about that because you said, who is responsible? Where does the liability sit? We work with a lot of hospitals at Keiser University, and AI is doing so much diagnoses in hospitals today. And AI, for the most part, is incredible and can do it with great veracity. But there is that question. What if it gets it wrong? Is the doctor liable? Is the hospital liable? How do you hold artificial intelligence? And is it the language model that the AI is built off of? So could you talk to us about that intersection of where who is held liable and say when AI goes wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very important question to think about. For starters, I don't think we should ever say AI did it. In my opinion, AI should not be taken face value. It is a probabilistic system. What we have today, these are all probabilistic systems. So for me, it's these are recommendations, and then at the end of the day, there is a pipeline of how these systems are deployed. There is data that's collected, so it's important to think about who collected the data, whether it was filtered, because data is not clean most of the time. Then how this data was trained to essentially train a model, and then there's the level of software that uses these models. So there's also another level where you need to make sure that you put boundaries to ensure that you cover edge cases where things can go wrong. And then there's the next layer, which is like product, the company deciding to deploy this product to society. And in this case, you're talking about healthcare, very delicate industry, right? It handles the health of people. So you can't say it's you are to blame. You need to think about the pipeline of things. And then also at the end, the doctor may hold liability, some responsibility, because as I mentioned, the doctor is the one that's trained to diagnose patients. So it AI makes it a lot easier to look at the sea of possibilities, and then you have a handful of possibilities for diagnosis, and then the doctor needs to make sure that those possibilities make sense. But at the end, it's the doctor who takes the decision. So again, yeah, it's very hard to pinpoint where responsibility lies. Maybe multiple points, but it's very. What's clear to me is that you can't say AI did it or no one's to blame because AI did it.
And I would agree with you completely. And I think that the law, and you may agree with this, is developing, and oftentimes regulation and law trail behind use. And so I think we're catching up to the use cases. But I agree with you. In one of the things at Kaiser we always state, and this is a guiding principle of our AI integration and AI use for students, the faculty, and staff, is that there's a human in the loop approach. AI is not to replace human subject matter expertise, is to partner with. But if you're not looking at the output, let's say you use LLM, you use Claude, it gives you an output. It could be slop. It could be inaccurate. And it is the human's responsibility to audit that outcome, make sure that it's accurate. The problem is, I do think people already, it's so new already, to get lazy and they don't do the work of following up and checking. And I agree with you. That's still our responsibility as humans to make sure that, and it would like anything else, like any other computer program, we wouldn't trust it 100%. We would make sure that our Google sources that we looked at, make sure that they're verifiable, make sure that the references that you're using as a scholar are verifiable. So I agree with you. So let me ask you, to the extent of your knowledge, where is the regulatory environment? Are we catching up? Are we way behind? What does it look like on an international and a global scale?
So we're not. I wouldn't say we're way behind. We're when it comes to technology more often than not gets to the hands of people faster than regulation. There is, with LLMs today, there's a lot of conversation around copyright. Essentially, these models are trained with trillions of data that comes from copyrighted authors. Just like students go on the internet to do research on topics, these LLMs can do that, but at much bigger scale and faster. But there's actually conversations in Congress happening around whether or not these authors should be compensated. And the director of my program, went on to testify in Congress about this. He mentions that you can't really, like, if you're talking about compensation, like if you're talking about copyright law and whether or not these authors should be compensated, it's really hard to attribute a portion of compensation to individual authors, as if an LLM produces an output and you try to say this output came from William Shakespeare or someone else, it's really tough because you would need to divide the output by a trillion input parameters, it just essentially turns into zero. But conversation is happening around that. It's just really difficult. But again, to your question, whether we are trying to catch up, I think law exists. It's being interpreted as we speak, and it will likely evolve as it always does. Usually what happens is technologies try to take advantage of the gray area that exists when regulation is not clear, and they have a competitive advantage for a certain period of time, but eventually the law does catch up and bring them within the regulations. That doesn't mean that anything bad is being done. Like if there's no harm, it's difficult. But what I'm trying to say is that it could go both ways. Like they can take advantage of this gray area, but as long as if they do cause harm, the law can apply retroactively. That's where I wanted to go. And this has happened in the past, not with AI, but other things. But
Yeah, and I think
happening.
yeah, and I think that makes perfect sense. As you mentioned, it's a complex issue. There's a lot of nuance. I also think one of the challenges with the regulation, this is just my opinion, is if you overregulate, then you're going to constrict innovation.
Yeah.
And that is a danger in itself because we are in this arms race, America is, with China and developing the latest and greatest AI models.
Yeah.
And, it's many world leaders, many of the Mag 7, CEOs have said that country, that entity that wins the AI race will govern the next 30, 40, 50 years. So you want to make sure there's ethical use, there's appropriate use, there's consumer protection. But if you overregulate, because China is not going to, I mean, I think that's clear, and other countries will not, you don't want to regulate yourself to where you're not competitive and you're restricting the research and development that's going on. So it's a tough issue. Just to change pace a little bit, you are an individual who is a practitioner using AI for a long time in your daily, use cases in your occupation. You have now educated yourself and are currently getting your master's degree at UPenn. I'm always interested. I did a graduate certificate at Stanford. I thought for AI integration, I thought it was great, but I'm not an individual. As a practitioner, we're using AI every day in Keiser and vibe coding, building stuff, but it's different. It's not the same thing that you're doing in robotics with Amazon, that you're at a whole different level. So I would love to know your belief. You're in school. Where is academia doing AI education, right? And where are we behind? Because at the end of the day, I think academia should play a leading role, not only upskilling people like you who are subject matter experts, but one of the things is, what I find is that our employees, basic knowledge, they don't have. So everyone, Bezos said, the horizontal layer of business is going to be AI use. Well, everyone's going to be using AI. If they're not already, I'm surprised. But where could academia get better? What is it doing right generally with AI?
I think that so Funny thing is, I just a couple of days ago, a friend of mine reached out and say, "Hey, look, USC is changing the master's degrees that they offer. So they are actually trying to be in touch with the with what we have right now, like with the revolution of AI. So it's likely that maybe computer science degrees will not exist as they do today, um, or maybe they will, but you will have new paths that teach you probably. So there's a difference between, I guess, science and engineering. So you what I see is you'll probably have more engineering degrees that apply the science behind AI. Yeah. And then in general, AI, I think that where we're more advanced is in large language models, but there's still a lot of area to cover in other areas such as robotics and computer vision, which is actually where the autonomous vehicles are still lagging behind, and the humanoids that you mentioned. I don't. So yeah, but I think also that I would say that AI should be incorporated in not only in at university level, but potentially the high school level, because it's really getting to the point that we're learning in a different way now. Where and it always has this has happened throughout history. Like things are get abstracted, so now students are using AI to do research and come up with new ideas. So yeah,
And I would agree with you. I mean, my eldest daughter, she's 7. I let her use my chat GPT. I just, tell her like it's a child, kid-friendly version, and it's pretty good.
yeah,
She loves it. She creates videos, images, but the reality is her era is going to be defined by AI.
yeah,
They should be learning about it in high school, at least in high school. And I think universities who are saying, well, we're going to be AI resistant or we're going to use blue books to write essays, they're missing the memo. Technology doesn't wait for anyone. Like you said, this has happened in the past as a technological revolution. What we believe is that AI needs to be put into every curriculum
yeah,
because every occupation, every job in the future is going to use AI. Now, different dosages. Maybe if you're in a program like therapy. Now, our clinical mental health counseling, our program chair, she's very into AI. So we're going to have we have a lot of AI in our curriculum, but that's probably more abnormal. But a lot of those occupations where it's EQ and empathy, maybe a little bit less, but healthcare, you're going to have a lot. Engineering, you're going to
yeah,
have a lot. And, you're right, computer science, we got rid of ours and we're doing intro to AI. So instead of intro to computers, it's intro to AI. So I agree with you. And I think that there is going to be a wave of high school students who said, look, I can use AI in my high school, but then university is telling me I can't use it. They're not going to choose that university. They're going to think that they're behind the times. It's like the same thing with the calculators. We used to ban calculators in math classrooms. You
yeah.
can't find that anymore. Like every classroom has a calculator. So
Good.
I do want to talk about robotics and humanoids. I know that's an area of expertise. We were talking offline. I get really excited about it. What do you, could you explain how, because I think a lot of our audience, we kind of are familiar with LLMs. We may be familiar with AI tools, but robotics is still a new thing. Kind of scary. A lot of us watch Terminator and different sci-fi movies. Can you explain how robots are trained using AI? And then what do you see as the future of humanoids? Are they going to be in all of our homes? Are they going to be in all the factories? What do you see?
So I'm no expert actually in robotics, but I did have a glimpse of how things work behind the scenes. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're not at the point that we'll have a humanoid like running around the house and doing stuff. I can tell you, for instance, when I was in Amazon Robotics, the task was very specific. The task that we wanted to accomplish was handle articulated items. Articulated items are items that, for instance, a book that has a cover. When you try to grab it, like you may like pull it open and then mess it up. Um, so like such a very specific task was a very difficult task to solve, and this was what 2 years ago. So these so at Amazon. Amazon is using robots to move around packages around the warehouse. They have robots handling specific types of packages, like what I just mentioned, articulated items. So they have like a robotic arm that will look at a bin, look at the items, and pick them up and put them on the next bin on the conveyor belt. These systems are trained on essentially repetition. You have test set and you have validation sets, and these you essentially put bins and there's cameras all over, so it involves a lot of computer vision. Robotics, such as self-driving cars, they need to use cameras, and you need to that's where probably I think that's where the artificial intelligence studies should go next. We've done a lot of advancement in large language models, essentially just plain language, but we need more in computer vision. So yeah, so as I was saying, these robotic arm, for instance, it will has cameras all around. It will first plan a path to pick up the item, and then it will execute. And then if it makes a mistake, it will essentially mark mark a loss, and then continue training and learn from the loss on repetition. But yeah, there's still a lot of ground to cover in that area.
Well, I think we have a lot of our podcast viewers are in the trades. So automotive, welding, electrical, plumbing. I think they're going to be encouraged by that to hear, we're still far away because, I think that's one of the things is, we talk a lot about white collar work being displaced with AI. Well, I think blue collar work is at threat to the humanoids. And, I watch these videos and you're saying trained on repetition. And at the end of the day, AI learns on pattern recognition. But watching the factory worker do the same thing over and over again and then training the robot to do it, I think that there will be, obviously, from a factory perspective, displacement. So for many, I think they're encouraged to hear that it's further away. But obviously, there's a lot of promise there, a lot of opportunity. And so I think that's what you were touching on. And I want to ask you, you made a comment, you said, well, there's a lot of progress in the LLMs. So you said there's an area, I don't know if I caught that. There's an area we need to progress more. What's that area that we're behind and we need to progress more?
Computer vision. Computer vision and
Could you
robotics.
describe for the audience computer vision? I'm not familiar with that term.
It's essentially the use of cameras, taking camera input for the software to have eyes and make movements.
So tell me, so computer vision, I understood you're like with the Tesla. My wife drives a Tesla, cameras everywhere, assessing everything. I know there's LiDAR also, but so what would be the application of computer vision with the cameras? Like where could you see that and then developing this new opportunity, this new technology? Where do you see that working?
So I'm not expert in computer vision, but I just can't tell you for what I saw at Amazon Robotics. It needs more more development.
So like for the robots to understand, what's going around in the environment, is that what you're kind of
correct?
So like if something happens that's unexpected, the robot needs to be able to react to that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, and because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the robotics. I watch these. I'm probably the worst, because I probably spend too much time on social media, and I watch these videos in China, and they're using weapons and doing all these backflips and all. But that's not really where we are. It's more they do specific tasks, but if there is an interruption, then it's not. It doesn't work as well.
Yeah, there's still a human in the loop. So you mentioned human in the loop at the very beginning. I actually have heard it as high-low. That's I actually worked on the piece of software that was called high-low. It's still very important in autonomous systems, and it's going to continue to be important to have a human in the loop. And to me, that's actually where my biggest worry is that if we're overconfident from our system and we say 95% of the time it's getting right, so you just continue to improve things, you may run into issues. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I haven't heard, like it's just me, but I haven't heard of regulatory conversations about robotics. There probably is. There probably is. But there's more about copyright law than anything else with LLMs. And I think to the general public, that's where the most surprising thing has been from in the last 5 or 6 years with the development of AI. But what we call AI is actually just large language models. We're not there yet with like we've always had robotics and but we're not at the point that we have autonomous robots.
Interesting. And I think that's a great point. I would assume, and I am not a subject matter expert in this, a lot of the copyright and the IP issues is because we're seeing on Instagram Keanu Reeves fight Tom Cruise and it's John Wick versus Ethan Hunt. And obviously they never permitted to this. And these actors are saying, well, if you can take my name, image, and likeness, then that's basically stealing from me. So I think a lot of the, let's say, celebrities and the one percenters, that's where they're impacted, is the IP and the copyright. But then, robotics, like you said, we don't really have it in mass production right now. So, but you're probably right. We need to be in front of that as opposed to behind it.
Yeah. So we do have mass production robotics. We don't have autonomous robotics yet.
Oh, fair. That's a good distinction. You're right. And I think I look, you read this stuff about the war in Iran, war in Ukraine, they are experimenting with these technologies. And again, you would know better than I, the timeline for consumer use is very different and it could be a lot longer, but it's going to happen, right? This is inevitable.
Yeah. And so there's actually, I'm thinking like about Robocop, for instance. I think that today the law states that there are certain things where AI cannot be used. One of those is law enforcement, and I think it's law enforcement and in lawsuits either. You can't use AI in a court of law. That you can't like imagine that'll be very like if we have like a humanoid, right, like that we use it for law enforcement, and as I mentioned, these are probabilistic agents, and they like just like Robocop, they analyze the person and they say this person's making this movement, that this looks like a threat, but it's not, and then they fire or something. This is a very far-fetched reality, right? But what I'm saying is like we're very, very far from that. And then we need to be careful about in what industries we deploy this autonomous systems.
That makes perfect sense. And I'm a big sci-fi reader, and it's interesting to me. You live long enough where the books you read start becoming reality. So it's like Minority Report, right?
Oh, awesome
predicting, right? You seen that movie? You're predicting the crime before it ever happens, so you can prevent it. Like you don't want that. And my favorite book series is Dune, and one of the rules is to not create a robot in the likeness of a human. So, kind of touching on where there's parameters. And, I want to ask you just two more questions that are more, I guess, serious, and then, a couple fun things. But to your point, so what do you think is one of the biggest issue areas that we need to start thinking about before it becomes a bigger problem, or even regulating or preventing against?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, I think for me is the automation bias, human becoming too willing to defer to AI. I think that if this continues to happen, like for instance, this is an issue that I'm seeing today in the software industry. We have faster and larger outputs of code in software today that we had before, right? What this is causing is like software engineers are pushing pull requests, essentially pushing code out to review at a much faster pace because they're using ChatGPT, they're using Claude, they're using Cursor. And what's happening is that the software engineering fundamentals are being lost. The architectural principles behind software are being lost. And also it's getting very, very hard to review code. Software developers today are more likely than not to just approve code as it comes in. It's like, oh, it's coming from the LLM, it's probably right, and it may be right 90% of the time, but another 10% of the time it's not. And what's happening is you're creating technical debt because you continue to approve at a much faster pace, and then now you see issues, and then now when issues arise, the the AI kind of like it just chokes. It doesn't. It starts like going beating around the bush, trying to figure out what the issue is, and the issue is that it was not well planned. It was not reviewed to spec. It was not. You didn't like the. We're not thinking about reliability. We're not thinking about redundancy. If this fails, what happens? Like you spin up another server. There's a lot of that's being lost.
Gustavo, I love that point. And I'm gonna, this is gonna be personal, but
Yeah.
that's my, my pitch for education, right? You said you need to know the fundamentals. You need to know use critical thinking is
Yeah.
essentially what I heard.
Yeah.
So to me, yeah, AI is amazing. It's a great tool. I call it a pocket consultant. Many times, if not most of the time, it's right, but it can make mistakes. It's not infallible. But if you don't have the knowledge to check it, and I always say this is my thing for the students because they're like, why do we need education? I go, look, I'm decent vibe coder at this point, okay? But I am not a data scientist. I am not a software engineer. I'm not an engineer, period. So I can vibe code a CAD design of a really nice bridge, but you better not build it because there's a good chance that the AI, because I'm not thinking about all the things I need to think about from a safety perspective when I'm, you know, prompting it, and then the output will look pretty. It'll look great. It'll look like you can build it. And you could probably build it, but you might die walking across it because over 5 years it's going to fall apart because I didn't consider all the structural guidelines you need that an engineer would. And so that's where I think education plays that role of having the foundational skills, having the critical thinking skills so you don't just become a rubber stamp. You
Yep.
truly become an auditor of the output.
Correct.
And that's where I think we need to be. So I think that's an amazing point. I'm going to be more positive. What is some of the biggest opportunities that we should be thinking about and society should be running to that we're not doing already?
Oh God. I think I read somewhere that a very like an elder mathematician. I don't remember exactly the specifics of it, but there was a math problem that could not be solved, and then they were able to solve it because of AI. Because with AI, you can research much faster and access trillions of data really fast, right? And then, yeah, computationally speaking, like humans are not as capable as these systems. So I think the biggest opportunity is in tackling these issues that involve so many like parameters, like, and then essentially narrowing down what you need to look at to solve issues. And this is what I was trying to the point that I was trying to make before. AI is a great recommendation system. What we have, LLMs are a great recommendation system, and then they're going to continue to improve. And I think in healthcare, for instance, diagnosing. Well, I've seen shows like I've seen Grey's Anatomy. I'm watching now a show called The Pit, um, and yeah, and sometimes doctors struggle with diagnosis. There's so many parameters, especially in a human being. We're probably the most complex system out there, and AI systems can help you narrow down what you need to look at. And we're probably going to find, I would say, cures for diseases that we couldn't before because it was incredibly, or maybe we would have, but maybe years from now. But now we have these systems that can help us research at a much faster pace and focus the research on specific things. Yeah.
Again, I appreciate that answer and the insight you provided. One of the things I took away also, and this is me just being silly, not only are you brilliant, you're a cool guy. I love The Pit. The Pit's a great show. So we appreciate the TV recommendations. I'm not hating, for those in the audience, I'm not hating on Grey's Anatomy. That's more down my wife's lane. And it's a
Oh,
good
God.
show, obviously, right? It's running
Yeah,
forever.
maybe it's a little girly.
Well, look, I mean, you like what you like, and everyone can like, and obviously it's a great show for all genders, but that's more, my wife's kind of lane. The Pit is amazing, so would definitely recommend that as well. But to your point, the ability to take a multivariate analysis, right? All these complexities, all this data, and then organize it and make
Yep.
sense of that. When you're talking about healthcare and genetic sequencing and trying to understand the human genome, I think you're 100% right. We're going to see such incredible advances that's going to keep our loved ones healthier, in the future. All right, well, Gustavo, you've been amazing. I really enjoy speaking to you. Actually, I will say this. After the podcast, I would love to keep in contact with you because
Yeah.
I just love your background and some of your insight. I want to ask you some more fun questions. What is the AI innovation? What is the technology that you're going to acquire? Is it may not be ready, it may not be out there, but what is the thing you want for it to be built and you're like, I'm going to buy this or I'm going to make it? What is that thing for you?
I mean, it's essentially what you said before. I would love a little robot running around. I hope to
Oh,
see.
you do
Uh,
for like
uh,
doing your laundry and doing that kind of
yeah, I
stuff.
would
Like,
love an R2D2
okay,
around. Like, just that would be awesome. Yeah.
is it going to look like R2D2? It's going to be like that little shuttle kind of thing.
If I had a say in it, it would. Yeah.
Nice, nice. I'm a
Yeah.
Star Wars fan too, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, but no love for 3C3PO then, huh?
I love
No.
C3PO. I love C3PO as well. Yeah.
Okay. But I will tell you, I'm a R2D2 fan myself. I would pick him over C3PO. The whole like humanoid thing kind of like seeing another human in your house, it kind of freaks me out a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah. Kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um.
then I've also watched iRobot, so that freaks me out too. But I would do it.
Yeah.
I would get the AI. So you want the robot made. That's what you want.
Essentially. Yeah.
All right, all right. Okay. I'll give you another question. What are you going to do? You're finishing your master's degree at UPenn. Someone like you, I'm sure you're going to be in high demand. Again, like your background, your resume, like where do you want to be? What do you want to do? What's your next chapter?
So I'm currently working for Caesar's Entertainment. I want to be able to probably pitch a recommendation engine for. So I work on the booking side of Caesar's Entertainment. It's just one of the largest hotel chains in Vegas. And I work on the booking side. So I work on the booking application, and I would love to do a little to apply what I'm learning to help customers get what they want more easily. That's so like there's so many options in Vegas and there's so many hotels. So I would love to help personalize experiences for customers.
Very cool.
That's yeah, that's one thing. But I also have my own personal projects. I'm a big car guy. Like I love cars, and I'm actually working on an application similar to, let's say, Car Gurus and Auto Trader, but I want to kind of like target the Latin American market and bring. There's a lot of lag in Latin American market when it comes to applications such as those. We don't really have those. I'm developing an application that leverages AI. For instance, like one of the amazing things about AI is like there's a model that called Haiku, which is for image processing. You can, for instance, automatically prevent users, like if they're uploading a listing of a vehicle, you can just use a specific pre-trained model to regulate based on a prompt, like say, oh, look at the image. Is this actually a car? If it's a car, approve it. If it's something heinous, definitely just disregard, right? So I actually have that, and also using it for pricing, like looking at collecting data and from car sales and doing my own pricing model for vehicles and recommending people when they want to sell a car, hey, you should probably list it for in this range. These are things that exist today in the U.S., but they don't outside of the U.S., and I kind of want to bring those outside.
I think that's brilliant. I'm hoping, and I'll be hoping, wishing, and praying for you that you're going to be a Latin American billionaire, and this is going to launch, and it's going to be really successful. I'm going to be like, I knew that guy. I met him early on. So that's really cool, and thank you for sharing that. So, just as a final question, a fun one: what is your favorite car? Or you can even do two. I know that's like your favorite food. It's impossible. What's your favorite cars of all time, and why? Just curious.
I don't know if this is cliche, but it's a Ferrari F40. I had a Ferrari
Okay,
F40
yeah, that's wrong
as a
with
kid.
that. You can say that.
Yeah, but it's way too expensive. I keep looking at the price through all the years.
Well, my
I
friend, I think when you ask anyone, unless you're like Lionel Messi or something or
uh,
Bezos, what's your favorite car? I don't. Most people will say a car they can't afford. I mean, I think that's fair. So,
yeah.
but why the Ferrari?
It was just because when I was a kid, I had a little Hot Wheels Ferrari F40.
Okay.
Essentially, it.
Yeah, that makes perfect
Um,
sense.
yeah, it's probably the most classic looking car from the supercars out there. Probably the F50. After that is my next favorite one. They're both extremely expensive, over 10 million, I think. But yeah, I love those.
Well, once your car company thing software launches and you're a multi-billionaire, you won't have to worry about 10 million. That'll be pocket change for you.
That'd be
You can
awesome.
have two or three if you want.
Appreciate it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, that's what I hope for you. I hope you get
I
that one
appreciate
day,
it.
and it's a great choice. I would say favorite car of all time for me is two. Probably the Shelby Cobra is going to be on the
Nice.
short list for me. I know it's a little bit older. It wouldn't drive as nice as the newer ones, the newer cars, but still, the whole blue with the white pinstripes, it gets me. I like Aston Martins too.
Oh, I
Yeah, I just think it's classy, elegant. Again, not buying one, but like eventually one day, maybe
You
that
can't,
will.
I thought actually, because I like Aston Martins because of James Bond, and I had
Yes,
a
Vanquish that disappears. That's
yes,
the
yes.
best. Yes, okay.
You can get it for like for a substantially cheaper price, a used
Really?
one. Yeah, for like 40, 50. But I don't know how long it will run for.
That right. It depends, right? The mileage and what condition
Yeah,
it's in. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, obviously like that's the thing with cars. The moment you drive it depreciates. So
yeah,
but that's probably more realistic than like the Ferraris or the
yeah,
Bugattis and stuff
yeah.
like that. But still, yeah, I think that would be my answer. But anyways, Gustavo, I want to tell you you've been amazing. I think you're going to be absolutely successful. I think what you're doing and your educational background are incredibly impressive. And we so appreciate you being on the Kaiser Plus AI podcast. And to our audience, ladies, gentlemen, and scholars, thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of Kaiser Plus AI, and you will see us next week as well. Gustavo, thank you so much, and we will see you all later. You all take care.